They are watching you now. They thought your downfall was permanent. Now they don't even recognize you. They never understood your assignment. They didn't realize they were trying to bury a seed, not a corpse. When people underestimate you, it reveals more about them than it does about you. They looked at your struggle and thought it was the end, but they didn't know that the end of you was never up to them. It was God's story, and He wasn't done writing. You went through the fire, but you didn't burn. You were thrown in the pit, but the pit didn't become your prison. It became your preparation. And now they're watching you walk in the very thing they said you never have, and they are shook. We live in a world that celebrates your fall and doubts your rise. They love to watch people break, but they hate to see people bounce back. But let me tell you something. The anointing on your life is not something they can cancel. They can talk, they can scheme, they can say trash, but when God says it's time to rise and shine, you will rise. And when you rise, it won't be quiet, it will be loud, it will be public, undeniable, because God doesn't raise His people in secret. He sets the table in presence of your enemies. He wants them to see it. He wants them to witness the comeback, because your story isn't just about your elevation. It's about the glory. That's why they're in awe. That's why they can't believe their eyes, because your transformation exposes their limitations. Your rise is a reminder that they don't hold the keys to your destiny. The ones they tried to break came back unshaken. The one they tried to bury now stands resurrected. And the truth is, it terrifies them, it humbles them, because they realize now that they were fighting someone who was chosen. They're mad, but they're not just mad at you. They're mad at themselves, mad that they couldn't break you, mad that they wasted time trying to block what God has already provided. They were busy trying to throw shade, but God was busy preparing your spotlight. They were planning your funeral, and God was planning your promotion. And now they can't stand watching. They can't stop. They scroll through your life, through your success, through your purpose-driven power, and they're speechless. They don't know what to do, man. They don't know. How are you still going strong? How are you still living? You're still shining, man. Continue to shine. They're speechless, but don't let their shock make you smile. Don't dim your light to make them comfortable. You paid for this with tears, endure sleepless nights, silent battles, and private storms. You walked through seasons where you questioned everything. Your word, your calling, your strength, and here you still strong, wiser, unshakable. You didn't just survive, you evolved. You didn't just make it, you leveled up. That's what they don't understand. They thought your pain will paralyze you, but it became your fuel for your purpose. They thought the betrayal will break you, but it burst your boldness. They thought the rejection was your end, but it was the redirection you needed. You became everything they said you couldn't be, and more, and now they have no choice but to respect what they once rejected. Let me tell you something about the God you serve. He's a God of reverses. He will flip the script so fast, make your enemies dizzy. He will elevate you in front of the very people who try to destroy you. Not because He wants you to gloat, because He wants the world to know He still lifts the humble. He still honors the faithful. He still blesses those who trust Him through the wilderness. And when God elevates you, no man can demote you. So don't shrink back when they look at you with envy. Don't apologize for the oil in your life. You've been through too much to pretend you're not chosen. Let them talk, let them stare, let them wrestle with their disbelief. That's not your battle anymore. Your responsibility now is to walk in purpose, with boldness, to carry your head high, and to keep doing what they said was impossible. Because the truth is, your comeback isn't just about you. It's about every person watching who thought they were finished. You are a testimony that failure is not final, that the betrayal is not fatal, that delay is not denial. You are a proof that God still restores, that He still redeems, that He still mornings into dancing. You are evidence that purpose cannot be buried, that favor cannot be blocked, that destiny cannot be denied. So keep walking, keep shining, keep growing. You don't owe explanations to people who cheered for your downfall. You owe glory to the God who raised you up. You owe praise to the one who breathed on your brokenness and turned it into brilliance. They didn't see the midnight tears. They didn't see the crushing, the pruning, the warfare, but they will see the harvest. And when they look at you with wide eyes and trembling hearts, when they whisper, how did they make it? You smile because you know what they don't. You were never fighting for approval. You were walking in assignment. You weren't built by applause. You were built by fire. No matter how mad they are, no matter how humble they feel, your elevation is not for their comfort. It's for God's glory. So let them watch. Let them wonder. Let them wrestle. Because your comeback was never meant to be quiet. It was meant to be prophetic. A loud, unstoppable reminder that when God is for you, nothing, no man, no devil, no betrayal can stand against you. Let them be mad. You just keep on moving, becoming the best version of yourself. You were always chosen. Now they know it too. Your rise was never about proving your enemies wrong. It was about proving God's hands right. The ones who thought it was over have front row seats to God's plan. Your restoration is public, but it was birthed in private obedience, silent prayers, and deep surrender. Now God is using your elevation to show that when He speaks over our life, no devil in hell can silence it. People are in awe, not just because you returned, but because you returned differently, stronger, wiser, bolder. They didn't expect you to heal. They didn't expect you to forgive. They didn't expect you to become the version of yourself that even you once doubted. But God used the fire to refine you, not to consume you. And now your very existence humbles those who thought they broke you. Every betrayal, every tear, every setback, it was a setup. God took the very pain that was supposed to paralyze you and turned it into power. Your testimony is living proof that God uses brokenness as the blueprint for greatness. You are not back, you're leading, inspiring, walking authority. What hurt you once is now healing others through you. God didn't just lift you up, He made sure they saw it. Because some people had to witness that you can't curse what God has blessed. Your table is being set in the presence of your enemies. Not for revenge, but for revelation. They needed to see that favor doesn't follow the proud, it follows the faithful. They're angry not because you failed, but because you flourished. But your job isn't to feed their bitterness, it's to fuel your purpose. You owe no apology for healing, growing and rising. Keep your eyes on the mission. What humbled them is what God used to honor you. Let them wrestle while you rise. They didn't see the divine blueprint when they saw you broke. All they saw was the ruins of what used to be, not the foundation God was about to build upon. They looked at your setbacks and assumed your story was over. But what they missed, what they still struggled to comprehend, is that your comeback was not a random occurrence. It was not a result of luck or chance or Miriam's resilience. Your comeback was divine. It was orchestrated by a hand greater than theirs, authored by a God who declares the end from the beginning. The same God who permitted the fall for the sake of a greater glory also commanded the rise, so that they will see the majesty of His sovereignty. You see, the reason they are in awe, the reason they're speechless and trembling, is because what they thought was a tragedy turned out to be a testimony. They can't figure it out. It doesn't make sense in the natural. How did the one who lost everything now stand in abundance? How did the one who was cast out now carry influence? How did the one who wept in the dark now shine so bright in the light? That's the part that breaks their understanding. Because the comeback didn't come through their systems. It didn't come through their validation. It didn't need their assistance. It came by divine appointment. There's a reason God didn't let you stay down. It was just not to comfort you. It was to reveal Himself through you. You were the vessel. You were the stage. God used your brokenness to show what redemption really looks like. He didn't save you quietly because your journey was never meant to be private. No, the same people who saw you fall had to see you rise, because God doesn't operate in secrets when it comes to vindication. He sets the tables in presence of your enemies for a reason. He wants them to see what they couldn't believe, what they never imagined possible, and it humbles them. It silences them, because your comeback exposes a truth they denied, that they don't have power over your purpose, that they thought the betrayal could break you, they thought the rejection could define you. But what they didn't realize was that their opposition became a very catalyst for your revelation. They played a role in God's script without knowing it. He used their jealousy, their slander, their schemes to push you into deeper faith, deeper prayer, deeper obedience. And now they can't stop watching the fruit what they tried to crush. This is why you must never seek revenge. You don't need to clap back. You don't need to match their energy. You were never on their level. While they were busy throwing stones, God was crafting a crown. While they were planning your funeral, God was designing your future. And now that you're rising, don't you dare look back for their approval. Their shock is not your problem. Their offense is not your assignment. Their awe is not your responsibility to explain. Your only responsibility is to give God the glory for what He's done and keep moving forward what He called you to do. You were never forgotten, even in your lowest moment. Even when it felt like the pain will consume you, heaven had its eyes on you. God was never pacing in worry. He was preparing you, shaping you, letting the storms teach you what peace really is, letting the betrayal teach you what loyalty to Him truly requires. And when the time came, when the appointed season arrived, He pulled you out of the shadows, out of the pit, out of the fire, not just for you to survive, but for you to be seen, not for your sake, but for theirs. Because He is not just the God of comfort, He is the God of justice. And the divine justice requires a public display, not to humiliate others, but to elevate the truth. And the truth is, no one can block what God has blessed. No man, no demon, no system, no lie. That's why your comeback rattles them, because it preaches without words. It declares purpose is protected. That favor doesn't answer to man. That when heaven endorses you, earth has no vote boldly in your comeback. You don't owe them an explanation. The only explanation is grace. The only explanation is obedience. The only explanation is divine purpose. Let them wrestle with the shock. Let them whisper. Let them stare. Let them sit in the silence of their disbelief, because you are not here to prove a point. You're here to fulfill a purpose. Your comeback is not just about restoration. It's about revelation. God is using you to show a generation what His power looks like. That He still raises the overlooked, that He still anoints the broken, that He still uses those who've been wounded, that He still sets apart the rejected. And when He moves, when He decides it's time, nothing can stop the rise, not even the memory of your fall. So yes, they are in awe, and yes, they are humbled, because they realize now you were never fighting alone. You were never rebuilding in your own strength. God has His hand on you the entire time. And when God has His hand on you, your life becomes a testimony of what heaven can do through a surrendered vessel. You don't need their claps. You don't need their validation. The one who called you out of the ashes is the same now who dresses you in beauty. The one who saw you weeping is the same one now fills your mouth with laughter. And when people ask how, when they wonder how you made it, your answer will always be the same. God did it. You're not just a comeback story. You're a confirmation that the word of God never fails. You're proof that purpose cannot be killed. You're the living evidence that what was meant for evil has been flipped for good. They thought it was over, but God, He never paused. He was just getting started. They're staring now because they suddenly care. But because they don't realize you has changed, it unsettles them, it confuses them. They look at you and see the same name, the same face, but the spirit is different. The presence, the confidence now carry is not the person you remember. And that's exactly why they're in awe. They can't believe their eyes, because you transformed in ways they never thought possible. They were so focused on the version of you that was broken, weary, unsure, sure, and wondered, that they never imagined you'd emerge refined, strengthened, and walking in authority. Your transformation is offensive to their assumptions. They box you in. They label you based on a chapter they walked on. They measured your entire destiny based on a temporary season. They thought that pain was your prison, that loss was your limit, that the failure was your final destination. But what they didn't see, what they couldn't calculate, was the power of God working behind the scenes. The crushing season wasn't the end. It was the catalyst. And now, your presence carries a weight that silenced them. Not because you said anything, but because your transformation says everything. They're not just shocked that you bounced back. They're shaken by how much you changed. Your peace is louder than your pain ever was. Your growth is more visible than their gossip. They expected you to be bitter, but instead you became better. They expected you to seek revenge, but you choose restoration. They thought you'd seek validation, but you found your identity in Christ. And now the very people who used to look down on you have to look up to you to understand you. That's why they're humbled. When people see transformation without explanation, it disturbs their understanding. You didn't announce your healing. You didn't publicize your process. While they were watching for evidence of your collapse, God was building you in private. He was shaping your character, restoring your confidence, refining your discernment. He was doing heart surgery while they were laughing at your wounds. And now that you're walking in purpose, carrying peace, standing tall, they have no frame of reference. They didn't witness the climb, so some it confuses them. They thought they knew you, but now they're confronted with a version of you that doesn't match the story they told themselves. This is what happens when you let God handle your healing. You don't just return to who you were. It becomes someone they can't define, someone they can't manipulate, someone they can't control. That's what humbled them. Not just your comeback, but your confidence. Not just your success, but your spiritual clarity. You're not carrying bitterness, and that confuses people who expected you to be vengeful. You're not stuck in cycles, and that offends those who try to keep you there. You evolved, and your evolution exposes their stagnation. See, your transformation is a mirror. And when people look at you now, they're forced to reflect on themselves. Your strength reminds them of their weakness. Your growth highlights their complacency. Your spiritual glow magnifies their darkness. And instead of celebrating what God has done in you, they sit in silence conviction. It's not your fault. You're not trying to offend them. But when you carry the evidence of divine restoration, it confronts every lie they believed about you and every limitation they placed on you. And let's be honest, they liked you better when you were struggling. You were easier to manage, easier to overlook, easier to mock. But now that you walk with wisdom, now that you speak with boldness, now that your steps are ordered and your vision is sharp, they don't know how to handle you. Because they weren't prepared for your healing. They didn't expect to see your rise. They were rooting for that version of you that kept apologizing for existing, that kept shrinking to make others comfortable. But that version is gone. And its place stands someone covered by grace, protected by purpose, and unshakable in identity. You didn't just change externally. You shift spiritually. You stopped reacting to nonsense. You started protecting your peace. You start begging to be seen and start building in silence. You detached from the noise, got anchored in God, and now they have no access to the new you. That's what leaves them shook. They can't find the wounds they once used to manipulate you. They can't trigger the response they once provoked. Your silence now speaks louder than your defense ever did. And it's that transformation, internal, undeniable, that has them in awe. What they didn't expect is that your transformation would change the entire atmosphere. You don't enter rooms the same way anymore. You don't tolerate the same conversations. You're not driven by ego or fear or validation. You move with clarity, with discernment, with divine confidence. And that shift, it disrupts those who still operate in confusion. You're not just different, you're disciplined, and that's what scares them. Because discipline brings results. Discipline brings favor. Discipline opens doors that no one can shut. And so while they're trying to figure you out, while they replay the past and try to reconcile it with your present, you keep moving forward. Because your transformation wasn't for their applause. It was for your assignment. You didn't grow so they could understand. You grew so you could fulfill purpose. Let them wonder, let them whisper, let them sit in silence. Your presence will speak. The truth is, they were never supposed to believe in you more than you believed in yourself. They were never supposed to see the vision before you did. God didn't allow them to recognize the oil in your life because He wanted you to discover it first. He wanted you to rise without their applause. He wanted you to learn to walk by faith and not by likes, comments, or compliments. And now, because you trusted the process, because you stayed hidden in Him, you become someone they never imagined you'd be. So don't apologize for the glow up. Don't explain the peace. Don't defend the joy. Just live it. Let your transformation be your testimony. Because the version of you they can't comprehend is the very version God always had in mind. And now that you're here, healed, whole, and walking in divine purpose, let them be humbled by the evidence of your obedience. You didn't just survive, you became, and that what leave them speechless. You didn't ask for the pain. You didn't pray for betrayal. You didn't expect the heartbreak, the loneliness, the abandonment, but it came anyway. And for a moment, it felt like the world had closed in on you. The weight was unbearable. The silence was deafening. And the people you expected to catch you were the ones who let you fall. Or worse, pushed you. But what they never realized was that pain doesn't just paralyze, it can also produce. What they used to try and break you, God used to build something deeper within you. They thought they were burying you in suffering, but God was planting you in purpose. Your pain became your platform, not because you were seeking sympathy, but because heaven was writing your testimony. You learned things in pain that peace could never teach you. You discovered strength you didn't know you had. You found your voice in the silence, your vision in the shadows, and your anointing in the ashes. God didn't send the pain, but He sure didn't waste it. He used it to strip away what was not aligned, to refine what was eternal, and to sharpen what was necessary for your calling. People didn't see the nights you cried yourself to sleep. They didn't witness the inner battles, the anxiety, the spiritual warfare. They didn't see the days when getting out of bed felt like a fight against gravity itself. But God saw, and more than that, He sat with you in the pain. He didn't rush your process. He didn't silence your tears. He didn't abandon you in your brokenness. He stayed, and in that staying, He began to reshape everything. The pain taught you how to pray differently. It taught you how to listen for God's whisper when all you wanted was a shout. It taught you to depend not on people, not on possessions, but on God alone. Because when you had nothing, when everybody walked away, when your name was dragged and your heart was crushed, it was His presence that held you together. And that intimacy, that sacred connection formed in the valley is now the very thing that sustains you on the mountaintop. Now when people look at you, they see the success, the favor, the glow, but they don't see the process. They don't see the wilderness. They don't see the crushing. But everything you carry today was born out of that painful place. The platform God has given you isn't built on perfection. It's built on pain that was surrendered to purpose. You're not standing because you were strong. You're standing because you refused to quit. Because when the pain came, you didn't let it make you bitter. You let it build you. Your voice now carries weight. Not because you studied it, because you lived it. Your word healed, because they were once your own medicine. Your wisdom is not borrowed. It's earned, and that's why you are powerful. That's why people listen when you speak, because you're not just talking, you're testifying. You're not just sharing knowledge, you're releasing revelation that was forged in fire. What the enemy tried to use to shame you, God is now using to shine through you. Your scars are no longer symbols of pain, but of power. Every bruise, every broken piece has become part of the masterpiece. You didn't just survive, you became the blueprint for others to follow. And now when someone else walks through the same fire, they will see your life and know that it's possible to come out refined instead of ruined. And those who once mocked your pain now marvels at your purpose. The same people who watched you fall now watch you flourish. But don't let their admiration distract you. This isn't about impressing people, it's about impacting lives. You were raised from the ruins for a reason. You were healed not just for your own joy, but so you could be a healer to others. What hurt you once is now the very thing God uses through you. That's not an accident, that's divine strategy. You were chosen to walk through what others could not handle. And though it almost took you out, it instead revealed what was in you. That deep reservoir of resilience, that spiritual strength, that unwavering faith. It was hidden until pain drew it to the surface. That's why your platform is powerful. Because it's authentic. It's not built on charisma. It's built on character. It's not built on popularity. It's built on process. And that process was painful, but it was necessary. So don't shrink back now. Don't let the old pain make you question the new power. Don't apologize for the anointing that came with the agony. You earned this authority. You walk through the valley, and now you speak from the mountaintop with compassion, not arrogance, because you remember what it was like to have no answers, no hope, no strength, and now you are the reminder to others that healing is possible, that God is faithful, that beauty truly can rise from the ashes. And those who are now in awe of your platform, they may never know the full story, but you do. You know every tear that watered the soul of your purpose. You know every betrayal that carved space for discernment. You know every lonely night that birthed an unshakable intimacy with your Creator. That's why you don't take this moment lightly. You know what it cost you. So when people ask how you got here, don't say luck, don't say talent, say grace, say obedience, say pain, process, in purpose. Because your story is not one of ease, it's one of endurance. And your platform is not just a stage, it's a sacred place where your pain became a prophecy, where your wounds became your weapon, and where God's glory is now revealed through your victory. You are not a victim, you are a vessel, and the oil that flows from your life, it came from being crushed. And now that you've been poured out, now that you've been refined, now that you walk in clarity and calling, don't waste it. Don't hide it. Let it speak. Let it heal. Let it reach those still stuck in the season you survived, because your pain became your platform. And that platform is holy ground. You didn't ask for an audience, but God gave you one anyway. While you were in the wilderness, broken, bruised, and misunderstood, you thought no one was watching. You assumed your struggle was hidden, your tears unseen, your faith walked unnoticed. But what you didn't realize was that heaven had placed you under divine observation. And so had those who doubted you. People were watching your life like a silent theater, waiting to see the curtain will close on you. But God is serving wisdom, was preparing not just your comeback, but the stage it will unfold on. God does not raise his children in secret when he wants to make a statement. The very people who whispered behind your back are now watching with wide eyes and sets the table before you. And now it's not to shame you, it's to shame them, it's to reveal himself. Because elevation isn't just a private reward, it's a public revelation of divine justice. God doesn't lift you just to prove you were worthy. He lifts you to demonstrate he is faithful. And sometimes he let those who hurt you, mocked you, rejected you, ignored you, stay in the room so they can see what it looks like when heaven backs someone they tried to bury. You see, God is strategically, he doesn't waste a single trial. He knows who needs to witness your rise, not for your glory, but for his. Because some people only believe when they see. And when they see the same one they tried to break, walking in blessings, moving in power and glowing with peace, they are left speechless. Your elevation becomes the sermon they didn't expect to hear. No words necessary, just presence, just progress, just undeniable proof that no weapon formed against you prosper. Not because it wasn't formed, because it wasn't permitted to win. They watched you stumble, they watched you lose, they saw the confusion, the despair, the betrayal. They may have even participated in it, and they thought it was the end. But that was only because they mistook process for punishment. They couldn't see that God was molding you, purging you, teaching you how to fight in silence and worship in warfare. He was making you invisible so he could make himself visible through you. And now that the appointed time has come, now that you've been tested, refined, and made ready, he's lifting you in their presence. Not for revenge, but for revelation. Your life is becoming a divine announcement. Not the kind that needs a microphone or spotlight, but the kind that causes even your enemies to take notice. The kind that shifts atmospheres when you walk into a room. The kind that leaves those who doubted you wondering, how did they make it? And the answer is simple. God did it. Not your connections, not your qualification, not your background. God did it. And he made sure that they saw it so they could know he still exalts the humble. He still honors the faithful. He still brings beauty from ashes. And now they're uncomfortable because they can't deny what they see. They once had the upper hand, or saw they thought. They had the gossip, they had the clicks, they had the power to exclude, manipulate, slander. But what they never had and could never manufacture was favor. Favor is what they're watching now. Favor is what lifted you when they tried to keep you down. Favor is what healed you when they hoped you'd stay broken. Favor is what opened the door that tried to lock shut. Favor is what has their mouth closed and their eyes wide open. Elevation always comes with observation. The higher you go, the more eyes are drawn to you. But don't let that intimidate you. You didn't rise to perform. You rose to reveal. You rose to walk in purpose. You rose to carry light in a dark world. And yes, it makes some people uncomfortable. And yes, it stirs envy in hearts that haven't healed. But your calling is not to manage their emotions. Your calling is to obey God and stay on assignment. Their power in a public elevation because it corrects public misjudgment. Those who dismissed you must consider what they thought they knew. Those who misjudge your silence now witness the strength behind it. Those who confuses your humility for weakness now must confront your authority. That's not arrogance, that's vindication. That's what it looks like when God says, "This is my servant, this is the one I choose, this is the one I preserve." And when God decides to showcase you, not even your past can disqualify you. Let them watch, let them wrestle, let them question. Your job is not to shrink back to keep others comfortable with the outdated version of who you used to be. You've been elevated because you were faithful. You endured the pit, the prison, and the process. And now you're in the palace, not for pride, but for purpose. You didn't arrive here by accident. You arrived because you trust God when nothing made sense. You kept walking when no one clapped. You kept sowing when the ground was dry. And now, in full view of the same ones who called you foolish, God is making your fruit visible. So don't waste time trying to explain your elevation. Don't try to convince anyone that you deserve it. The evidence is in your endurance. The glory belongs to God. Let your walk speak. Let your consistency speak. Let your transformation speak. Because in this season, your elevation is not just about where you're going. It's about what God is showing. And what He is showing is that He still honors the ones who obey in private. That He still exalts the ones who serve in silence. That He still rewards the ones who stay loyal when no one is watching. You've been placed in the spotlight not because you chased it, but because you carried light. And when light rises, darkness trembles. That's why they're uncomfortable. That's why they whisper. That's why some are watching in silence and awe. Because they never expected to see you here. But you're here anyway, by grace, by fire, by favor. And now they can't deny it. You were made to be seen, not for vanity, but for victory. You were hidden for a season, but revealed in the right time. Now that your elevation is unfolding, embrace it. Walk in it. Steward it. Because every eye watching is another opportunity for God to be glorified through your life. They watched you fall, now they will witness your rise. Let the elevation speak. They're angry, not because you failed, but because you flourished. That's the reality many people refuse to face when God starts rewriting a story. They didn't anticipate that the same situation they thought will bury you will become the very soul God will use to resurrect you. And now they're mad at you. Not at you, but the fact that nothing they did could stop the purpose that was planted inside you. We're never supposed to survive the storm. You were never meant to find your voice again. You were never supposed to heal, to rise and to walk with boldness after that betrayal. But by divine design, God used what was meant to hurt you to help you. He used the schemes to shape your spirit, and now your elevation is unsettling them. Let them be mad because you're on a mission. You don't have time to play in the mud with people who are intimidated by your transformation. You don't have time to answer every whisper, respond to every insult, or react to every passive-aggressive post or rumor. Your destiny is not dependent on their approval, and your obedience is not contingent upon their acceptance. You entered a season where your silence is a weapon and your focus is a shield. You don't owe them access to your process. You don't owe them why God chose you. You don't have to apologize for being called. They're mad because the story they told about you doesn't match the glory God placed in you. They were certain you were broken beyond repair. They assured that your tears would be permanent. They told people you were done. But when God restores, He doesn't just bring you back. He brings you back better. Your glow is not arrogance. It's evidence, evidence that God redeems, restores, and raises. And no matter how they twist the narrative, they cannot erase the favor that now follows your footstep. You carry a weight now, not the weight of pain, but the weight of purpose, not the weight of rejection, but the weight of responsibility. You walk with an authority that scares them, because it reminds them of what they tried to bury and couldn't. You're not rising out of spite, you're rising out of submission. You said yes to the call, you said yes when it hurts. You said yes when you were overlooked. You said yes when your name was dragged, when your motives were questioned, when your love was misunderstood, and now you're reaping a harvest that your enemies never imagined you'd see. They only knew your brokenness, not your blueprint. They only knew your weakness, not your weapon. They were walking around with the fire of God hidden behind your wounds, and now that the smoke has cleared, they're realizing they couldn't stop what they didn't understand. And while they plot, you're planting. While they scheme, you're sowing. While they gossip, you're growing. You're moving in silence because you understand that God's promotion doesn't need your performance. It just needs your posture. And you learn to posture yourself in humility, in worship, in trust. You're not chasing validation anymore. You're chasing vision. You shift from proving yourself to positioning yourself. You move from defending your name to declaring God's promise. And that shift is what humbles them, because they're watching someone they counted out become someone they can't deny. They're angry, but you're advancing. And there will always be people who hate your healing because it proves that God has the final word. There will always be individuals who can't stand your smile because they know who tried to steal your joy. They'll be irritated by your light because they preferred you in the shadows. But your light is not up for debate. Your joy is not negotiable. You paid a price that most people didn't see. You bled behind closed doors. You broke in silence. You battled in secret. And God, who saw every tear, decided to reward you in the open. So yes, they're big mad, but you're a big blessing. They're shaking, but you're standing. And let's be honest, if they could have stopped you, they would have. If their attacks had the final say, you wouldn't be here. But you're still standing, still worshiping, still dreaming, still building, still becoming. And your every existence is a testimony that no weapon formed against you prospered. They formed, oh yes, they talked, they plotted, they tried to isolate you, humiliate you, dismantle your identity. But God intercepted their arrows and turned the warfare into your worship. He flipped their curses into confirmation. He made the reaction your redirection. And now you're walking in rooms you cried over. You're living in answered prayers. You're carrying peace in the places you once carried pain. So don't get distracted by their bitterness. Don't shrink to make them comfortable. Don't delay your assignment trying to defend your anointing. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them stew in their confusion. God is not obligated to explain why He's blessing you. He's only obligated to finish what He started. And He's not finished with you yet. This is just the beginning. You've survived what was supposed to destroy you, and now you've been released into destiny. They're mad because they can't undo what God has done. And that's not your concern. Your concern is staying faithful, staying focused, staying fruitful. Let them be mad. You're not busy making impact. Let them be bitter. You're too busy building legacy. Let them whisper. You're not too busy walking in authority. And when your assignment is complete, they will realize it was never personal. It was always prophetic. You weren't just rising for you. You were rising for every person who needed proof that God can still raise the overlooked, restore the broken, and launch the rejected into purpose. And now, because you didn't quit, they're humbled, they're speechless, and yes, they're big mad. But you are walking in promise, and you're just getting started.